Well, here he goes again, and now we know how President Obama is planning to cut gas emissions by 28% in 10 years by bypassing Congress altogether. Republicans are promising to smack this one down. Hadley, he says, well, these executive orders are getting expensive. Democratic strategist Chuck Rocker says if the GOP really won't sign on, the White House has to do this by executive order. But, Hadley, you don't like it.
No, over and over again, we've seen this president, this administration overreaching, trying to use the most of their executive power, even to the point of violating the separation of powers at certain places with Obamacare. We've seen executive appointments that haven't gone through the correct process. And now, with this plan to decrease emissions in the United States, I suggest to the president that if he has a policy agenda, he needs to build consensus for it with the American people and their representatives in Congress, rather than trying to act alone.
It is getting to be a little overkill here, don't you think, Chuck? I mean, really, this is now just a joke. We don't even need Congress, right?
Well, climate change for these Republicans are a moped. It's the most responsible thing to do, and it's fun to ride, but they don't want nobody to watch them on it, and they sure don't want their donors to see them on it, because the people who would be hurt by this are the people who own these factories. So the guys behind me care about two things. They care about money and they care about votes. The American people support this at 77%.
Wait a minute, and
I think it's a good thing.
And the president and Democrats do not?
The president supports the climate change.
No, but you said the president doesn't think about politics. Democrats don't think about votes. Come on.
Absolutely, but they're not in charge. They're not in charge in the House. That's to Haley's point.
Yeah, but
if you're
my
going
point
to get
is,
something
even
through,
Democrats were the ones who called the president out on not consulting them on this whatever Iranian nuke deal it works out. Because
you can't have 535 congressmen go to the UN, Neil.
Well,
you can only have one president who goes
I mean,
to
you
the
have
UN.
over 100 Democrats, including Steny Hoyer and committee chairs, who say, Mr. President, we're not going to send this letter to Iran, but we're sending it to you to let you know you are overstepping it.
Well, today in the Washington Post, there was outlines of why this is, in fact, legal for what he's doing, and he's coming with other countries to the UN to something that is proposed, something that we can bury our head in the sand and say that's not here, or try to make sure we leave a planet for our children.
But if a Republican president did all of the above, you would be calling him or on the carpet, right?
Look, I do politics for a living, Neil. I'm not a policy wonk.
Okay.
Absolutely, I'd be running an ad against the Republicans.
All right. Well, here's where it gets into overkill. It is now in overkill, Hadley, and I worry about what kind of die is cast for future presidents, Republican or Democrat, and future Congresses, Republican or Democrat.
Well, that's right. Any executive action or executive order that we see under this administration has the potential of being undone with a future president that might disagree. So, regardless of what side of the political aisle you're on, we ought to hesitate to give so much power and to set these precedents in our executive branch. And,
but, Hadley, the Republicans have themselves to blame for this. Insofar, I don't support this, but I'm saying that they have resisted or fought the president on so many things that now the president is saying, look, I got less than a couple of years here. The hell with all of you. I'm not going to be bothered. All that other side of Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, certainly politics have become very polarized in Washington, but that doesn't mean that we can step away from this constitutional process that's been in place for 200 years. This is the way we do things in America. We hear out all of the interests involved. People elect representatives to Congress so that their voices can be heard. And if we ignore that process, that not only sets a terrible precedent, but if we have a goal, maybe a laudable goal, like protecting the earth and the environment, we have to consider the trade-offs involved. This should be a decision for the many, not for the few in the administration.
What do you think of that, Chuck, that you're now okay with tossing the Constitution?
Look, I think that's crazy. I think there are checks and balances in this whole conversation, this whole discussion.
There are no checks and balances.
Absolutely there are, Neil, and you know that.
He's
if he oversteps his boundary, there's checks and balances within the government. That's what they did to Bill Clinton. I mean, if he does something that was absolutely beyond the bounds of the Constitution, there would be checks and balances. I would take, for example, his immigration and what happened with the court in Texas.
They're already saying, Mr. President, you've gone beyond the Constitution. He's saying, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. So he's ignoring the checks and he's ignoring the balances.
That's why there's a Supreme Court. That's why there are checks and balances within our government.
Yeah, but as Hannah said, that Supreme Court, that's going to come down the road. That's going to come years later.
Absolutely,
it takes years, and we've seen this with the case against Obamacare with the IRS subsidies. We've seen this with another case against Obamacare with the administrative decision to delay the employer mandates in the law. So it takes a couple of years for these things to work through the Supreme Court.
Oh, man, yeah, why not?
Yes, there will be challenges, but in the meantime, people are going to be hurt. Our economy is going to be hurt. Our jobs are going to suffer if we put in place these energy regulations that are going to take away our ability to grow and produce, for example, natural gas.
I mean, a Republican president tries this. this. I'm going to have you book, and I know you will be all over that Republican president.
Absolutely, I will.
Okay, well, there you go. That's what I love about you.
I will be
you
too.
are so good.
I'll be critical of any president.
I'll just go whichever way the wind is going. All right, guys, I want to thank you both very much. Meanwhile, Fox Biz Alert, are we about to get housed? A new report that says, you know, for housing and markets, it's back to those days. Fannie and Freddie are doing something they shouldn't.